got for you? Carabao Cup, Premier League, Bundesliga, Serie A, MLS and more. We'll start, though, in Spain, of course, the big...
It was enjoyable.
Second half was so weird because...
Well, it was enjoyable from a Real Madrid perspective, not Barcelona. You know, it was a bit... We were saying during that second half, we said, have they been in that Real Madrid half for this 10-minute period during the second half? And they hadn't. And for Real Madrid, it was a little bit like the City game in some sense, where for the first half they were a little timid. Barcelona certainly had the better of the chances, and they looked more dangerous in the first 45. And then it was like a kick up the backside. They just pressed a little bit better. They passed it sharper. They got the switchy play to Vinicius quite a lot. Full-backs were piling forward. And Barcelona didn't have the answer. They really didn't have the answer.
It was desperate for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
From a Barcelona perspective?
From anybody's point of view, it was desperate.
The opening 20 minutes?
Yeah, well, there was nothing going on. Messi was standing up front beside Griezmann, watching what was going on. Nobody was dominating. And then in the last half of the first half, it could have been 3-0 Barcelona. 3 really good chances. And that makes you think, what are Real Madrid? Because they clearly went out at the start of the game not to lose the game. They clearly tried to stay in good, solid positions, but they could have been 3-0 down at half-time. So that can't be them. What has to be them is what we saw in the second half, when they could have and should have scored 4 goals and completely dominated the game.
On the commentary that we had, there was talk about Griezmann and Braithwaite, and possibly Martin Braithwaite could have started. You know, that's what they were saying. And when I looked at Griezmann, he missed that chance, right? The very good one in the first half where he was leaning back and he ballooned it over. But then there was another one 10 minutes later where Semedo ran down the right-hand side. It was clear. And Griezmann literally stood behind, I think it was Rafael Varane, when he could have made a little run and it would have been an easy ball across the 6-yard box and he would have had a tap in. And it almost looked to me that he didn't want it.
Do you know he had another one as well in the first half? He was in the perfect spot, in my opinion, for him. He's on the right-hand side. All he has to do is check in on his left, and he's got the whole goal to shoot at. Instead, he's looking around for Messi, and he just rolled it to the side and put him in a wide position. There is no way that he does that when he's playing for France. When he's playing for France, he drops his shoulder, comes inside, and whips it in at the top corner.
Meanwhile, it's a conversation we've had about Barcelona before. When Messi has an off day, they put in performances like this. He had a couple of chances, didn't take them, and then there's no answer. By
the way, he got rattled a couple of times as well during the game in the second half. I think it was Valverde, might have been Casemiro as well on the edge of the box, and it was, you know, there was no messing around today. I think Stevie was right. The chance he had in the first half, because Varane put him under pressure, ideally he wanted the ball to drop a little further. But when the challenge was coming in, he had to take it a little bit earlier. But it's not rocket science. They're heavily reliant on him and previously Luis Suarez. And some of the other guys are not able to step up to the plate. The one thing from Real Madrid, and it was a surprise to some people during the week, as they started to take control of the game, it was no surprise that Toni Kroos was the guy that was saying, like, give me the ball. Under pressure, it doesn't matter. Just taking the sting out at the right time or getting him on the front foot at the right time, because he's so good technically at passing the ball.
You know, that 10-minute period you were saying, well, you asked us if Barca had got out their half, is because Real Madrid were closing them in their own half. They didn't do that either in the first half. They came and stood off. And for that 10-minute period, this wasn't, well, what is City doing to this team? This was, what's happened to this team? They couldn't pass to each other. And I guess it's a combination of just poor passing, lack of confidence with the looks of it. Just couldn't get out.
Well, as promised, Gab Marcotti is also with us. Gab, your assessment of the Clásico?
I mean, I think from Real Madrid's perspective, what we're seeing is that, you know, Zidane treats these games and tailors his team to the opposition, to what he wants to achieve. And, you know, the boys saying that Real Madrid didn't want to lose this game, first and foremost, and they came out and they absorbed the pressure, probably absorbed more pressure than they would have wanted. But then he made the changes, and then Benzema and Vinicius weren't as isolated as they were earlier in the game. And if you go back, Real Madrid's record in terms of keeping clean sheets and not competing goals against Barcelona and Atletico Madrid, it's been pretty darn good since Zidane's been around, going back to last season.
What will strike me from this game is just the fact that there were a lot of eyebrows raised when it was Quique Setien that was named as the manager when Valverde got the sack. And I know that Luis Suarez is out, and I know they've had other injuries, but there was no tactical response, it seemed, to what was going on. What you talked about, the fact they weren't playing out, and in the substitutions that he made didn't make much of a difference.
I mean, there might be a little bit more passing of the ball, and some of the stats from previous games would tell you that, but I mean, the desperation to get Valverde out, to get a guy in who had less experience, well, certainly at that level, and of that level of club, there's no discerning difference, is there? It's not like sticking out like a sore thumb from one style to the other.
I think what they sold us at the time was just to try and take the pressure off them because they moved Valverde out. They sold us on, oh, this guy's going to change this and that. And so you can't really say, yeah, right, because you've got to give the guy a chance. So I think we all took what they were selling, but now we're seeing that really nothing's changed.
Gab, you made a ooh noise, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I mean, I think it is. It's not good, but it's not. I don't think it's the same as Valverde. I mean, I'm more with Stevie on this point. That endless possession requires chemistry and it requires movement from the front guys. And when you only have two front guys and you have Griezmann, who I don't know if he was hiding as you guys suggested, but certainly wasn't on top of his game, and Messi has an off night, and those guys don't move the way you're supposed to, then all of a sudden it becomes very, very difficult, and you find yourself playing in front of the opposing defense most of the time. And they did create those chances in the first half, and I thought a lot of that was down to individual situations. But then in the second half, when Real Madrid kind of moved their center of gravity a little bit further up the pitch, all of a sudden Barcelona had real issues in even playing out from the back. And Setien had no answer for that.
You get the feeling, obviously, it's going to be a tight title race. It'll go right down to the wire. I suppose it's almost an obvious answer now as to who you think is going to win La Liga off the back of today.
No idea. I don't know. It's swinging from one to the other. Yeah. What we do know is that Atleti are not going to be unlikely to be in the race.
Sure.
Keep dropping points, which is a bit disappointing.
And also, it's likely that Real Madrid will have only La Liga to focus on, in a sense that obviously they will go into that Manchester City second leg as big underdogs, as opposed to Barcelona, who've
got them out already, lad?
Well, in theory, you would imagine that Barca will get through against Napoli and Real Madrid won't get through against City, so therefore...
Well, if they put on a second half performance, if they put on a performance like they did for periods in the second half against City, it's not a given. But you're right. I mean, they're not favourites to go through, but it's not like a 3 or 4-0 scoreline. So I would say at the moment, because of the cohesiveness and the continuity of the coaching staff in terms of Zidane knows what he wants, he knows his players better, he doesn't have the major injuries that Barca have, or what they cried about. I would say Real Madrid. Not because they've gone top of the league tonight, but just because I think they're a little bit better balanced at the moment.
I mean, I'll kind of go along with that.
But then
not for any other reason than you may be right, they may get knocked out, and if they do, then clearly that will help them. But the truth is, they've been kind of stumbling and bumbling since the start of the season.
Yeah.
So I'll go with Real, but not with any huge amount of confidence. Last
word on this for you, Gab?
I said Real Madrid before this game, and I'm sticking to it. I feel a little bit vindicated. Barcelona, I think, also have a bit of a tougher run-in, and I think the boys are right. I think the Champions League, and if Real Madrid do go out, I think that's another check mark for them, despite, of course, Eden Hazard's absence.
If you think everyone's talking nonsense, you can always tweet us at ESPNFC. It's always nice to hear your...
Heads down. But John Stones got himself in a pickle. Great header, as we saw, by the Villa player from the highlight. And then it just gave them hope that they could hang in there. I mean, they were never going to dominate the game. And the only thing was City for all their possession, couldn't finish them off and get that extra goal, which put them under pressure at the end. And Villa almost get that equaliser, which would have taken it to extra time.
Yeah, I mean, the best team won. The team that won this deserved to win it. But you've got to give credit to Villa. They hung in there because we knew that was the only chance they had. They couldn't afford to open out an attack because they'd lose goals, but they stuck with it. And the longer the game went on, when it was only one goal, you could feel the Villa fans beginning to think, you know what, maybe we can sneak one, but it just wasn't to be. You saw the save from Bravo, and that was it. So best team won though.
If you want to know the difference, you know, get City playing away in the Bernabeu and played a fine game, winning in Madrid. Come back, play a cup final, and still able to make 8 changes against another Premier League team, albeit a struggling one, and completely dominate the game. That's kind of where they are in terms of their strength.
Meanwhile, in the Premier League today, a couple of matches, significant ones regarding that race for a Champions League spot next season or not, and everyone knows the decision can be viewed differently. This is what Solskjaer said. David De Gea told me he gets distracted because Sigurdsson is there. Gab, what do you make of it?
Look, I think Ancelotti's correct. This is a really, really difficult decision, and that you get into, the question of whether VAR should intervene. But of course, it's an offside decision, so VAR does intervene. But there's such an element of subjectivity here in terms of, does he interfere? He's on the ground. Is he interfering with an opponent by being there? Personally, I'm not sure that he is, and I thought the goal should stand. I can also see how that might be disallowed as well. And again, you're back to this decision. This is something where, and it's not something you see on offsides, but because there is an interpretation here, I feel more comfortable if the referee looked at it.
We spoke to former referee, friend of the show, Peter Walton. He says that they got the decision correct.
Well, yeah, but off the back of he thought Lascelles should have stayed on the field. Yeah. He's going to be dining out in that one.
The FA and the Referees Association.
As well, the referee, Ancelotti comes on Ancelotti on the raver, right? And now he brandishes the red card like some headmaster. You know what I mean? Honestly, it just winds me up. We've talked about this. I'm with Gab. It is subjective, and I could see the referee, I think it was John Moss who was VAR, I could see the mind ticking. But ultimately, you've got to ask yourself, would David De Gea have saved that deflection had Sigurdsson not been there? And I think the answer is a clear no.
But that's not part of the law. That's the problem, isn't it?
Well, and
so, for example, if I've got a player in front of me and I'm a goalkeeper and it goes top corner, I'm never going to make that save. The fact that he's there still means the goal will be ruled off.
No.
Let's get down to brass tacks. Let's get down to brass tacks here. The Premier League have said that VAR disallowed it because Sigurdsson impaired the goalkeeper's vision of the ball. Mm-hmm. That is complete and utter garbage.
But De Gea said it afterwards.
Hold on a second. Oh, De Gea said it after. There's a surprise. Wowee. Somebody please tell me, when the shot's taken, if his vision is impaired, why is he moving to the side that the ball's going to if his vision's impaired? See, it's complete nonsense.
Does it influence the goalkeeper's ability to make a save? That's the crux of the matter, and the answer's no, because he's already, as Stevie said, moving clearly over to his right, and he's now planted. By the time it takes a deflection, he's planted his feet.
He's right, Peg.
And when it goes past Sigurdsson, who drags the leg away, he's planted the foot. There's not a hope in hell he's going to get 3 to 4 yards to the left.
Can we call Peter and ask him?
But it's subjective, and you know...
He's in bed.
Peter, why is the goalkeeper moving to the right if he can't see the ball?
We'll be talking about the big picture of that result regarding top 4 in a moment, but of course there was another game today in the clear. They will be title winners. Manchester City will finish second. Leicester suffered defeat, of course, on Friday. They're in third. Chelsea fourth after a draw against Bournemouth. They are now 3 points clear of United in fifth. Wolves now level on points with Solskjaer's side on 42, 2 points ahead of Spurs. By the way, Sheffield United have a game in hand over all of it. If Sheffield United win, they move up to fifth in the table, which, with Manchester City being banned as it stands from Europe next season, means that the Blades will be in the Champions League next campaign. Now, according to the bookies, it will be Leicester City and Chelsea who will finish in the top 4. Manchester United then to join them in a Champions League spot if indeed City are not allowed to qualify. Gav, it has become the most interesting thing about the Premier League, hasn't it, given that Liverpool have already run away with the title?
Oh yeah, without question. I think at this stage, it is a legitimate, wide open race with 5 teams going for 4 spots, and possibly if Leicester continue to lose, they could get sucked in there, and it could be 6 teams going for 2 spots. So it's and then that's before you get into the whole business of whether City get banned for not or not, and it drops down to 5th. So at least we got something to keep us going in these last couple months of the season.
Yeah, indeed, that is very true. You take a look at it, though. Chelsea hitting a bad patch at very much the wrong time. United are looking better, aren't they? Bruno Fernandes has come in and really lifted this team.
Yeah, and they found a shape and a way to get him in behind the front 2 that suits them with getting, McTominay and Fred, and I think it was Matic today, to try and give them a bit more of a solid base. Actually, in the first half, they played particularly well. The stupid goal they gave away, there's nothing they can do about that. That's a basic error from De Gea. But they actually passed it really well. They passed it quick. They got bodies forward. Their movement was good. And they really dominated. Everton were looking for Calvert-Lewin over the top. They got a bit more disrupted in the second half, but there's no doubt United are in much better shape at the moment to get into that top 4 or 5 than they were 3 months ago.
I think it's a little worrying, though, that basically we've kind of turned around and we're saying this team's all about Bruno Fernandes. And even the goal he scores is horrendous goalkeeping from Pickford. So you take him out of the equation as far as scoring goals are concerned, where are they coming from in order for them to get in the top 4 or the top 5?
Well, just a reminder now this week, focus will turn to the FA Cup, and on the next edition of the show, we'll be looking back at Portsmouth against Arsenal at Fratton Park. That is a game you can see live here on ESPN Plus. 2:45 Eastern coverage starts. And 24 hours later, it's Chelsea against Liverpool at Stamford Bridge. An intriguing tie now, giving the Roma win by 4-3. So you remember, Lazio winning yesterday put them top of the table, 2 clear of Juventus. Their game against Inter Milan was postponed, of course, because of the coronavirus. Atalanta now 3 clear of Roma, still in 4th. Gab, a weird weekend, I think it's fair to say, in Italy. What stood out for you overall?
Well, obviously Lazio getting the job done on Saturday. It just ratchets up the pressure a little bit more on Juventus when and if they finally play against Inter. And incidentally, it's now they're floating the possibility that they might play this game on the 9th of May, which is a Monday. Sorry, 9th of March, which is a Monday, and then postpone next weekend's fixtures off to that date in May 13th or whatever it is. It's a gigantic mess. But also, you guys talked about it, Atalanta. It's almost like they're playing a different sport, just going out there and just scoring like there's no tomorrow.
Meanwhile, in the Bundesliga, huge. Welcome into the latest edition of Extra Time. Quite a 24 hours in the world of football. Thank you very much for all of your tweets. A lot about the Classico, a lot about Lionel Messi.
Oh, what is it? Does it mention Ronaldo?
Where was Messi hiding? Did they find him yet? Not his best game.
No.
People just can't wait to pile in. No matter what this guy's done for over a decade, he only has to have one quiet day at the office, and they all pile in. It's quite scary, really, how small-minded some people are over this matter.
Gav, there's the link.
Maybe he was told that Cristiano was up in the stands with a little Messi hex doll, and maybe that worked. I don't know. Or maybe the dude just had a bad game. It happens.
I know exactly.
Vinicius is the first teenager since Messi to score at El Clasico. Gab, can he be the real deal?
Well, obviously, they spent a ton of money on him, and then all of a sudden he wasn't even the best teenage Brazilian forward at Real Madrid because Rodrigo got all that time. I think he's somebody who's still raw. I think you saw that even in that game. He still made mistakes, and this is when it's good to remind ourselves that the guy is just 19 years old. I know it feels like he's been at Real Madrid for, well, I suppose it's the second season, but you know, he's got kinks he needs to iron out. I think it did him good when he was dropped from the first team for a while. But look, he shows up and he's on a team with Gareth Bale, Eden Hazard. Those are great people to learn from, to look up to, and yeah, I think he's got another level to go to, no question about it. Maybe more than one.
Steve, you were suggesting maybe he was a little lucky in the goal.
Yeah, I thought he was. I thought the goal, had it not come off the shin of Piqué, I think.
Did he not plan for that shin though?
Oh, hey, listen, sometimes you get a bit of luck. You know what I liked about him was he kept at it. He didn't hide. You know, he had so many opportunities down that side against Semedo one-on-one, and he tried to go inside him. He tried to go outside him. Sometimes he should have passed when he would try and beat him. It comes with experience, and you only get that by playing. But you've got to learn from it. You know, it's one thing to make a decision during a game and then keep repeating it game after game. It's another thing to learn from it and change that.
Why Stevie keeps saying that Ramos isn't world class?
How many times am I going to say
He's won
that?
4 Champions League, a World Cup, Euros, La Liga. Yet Stevie doesn't consider him world class.
He's not
Well,
world
according
class.
to him, Van Dijk is world class by just winning a single Champions League.
Right. I'll repeat this for the 3,000th time. When you've got two... Listen, defending is about decision-making.
Right.
Right? Ultimately. Because when it's past you, they're on the goalkeeper. So you have to be cool. You have to be controlled. Now, when you say cool and controlled, does that remind you of Ramos? How do you get
But
200...
clearly he has been cool and controlled, or else he wouldn't have won
How
all
do
of
you get
this.
260...
Well, he didn't win them.
How
But
do you
they
get
didn't carry him, did they?
Well, you know,
he was a key part of their success.
Hold on. You're snashing over the main point.
Snashing,
If
that's
you're
not a
cool,
word.
if you're cool, calm, collected, and in control,
Yes.
you don't get 262 yellow cards and 26 red cards. It's the complete opposite of cool, calm, and in control.
But isn't that just part of his DNA?
And by the way, in order to get so many yellow cards, it means you have to foul people, which means either they've beaten you or you're in the wrong position to start with.
So he's lucky.
which part
Is
of
he
this
lucky
whole
to have
thing
won
I've
all of
just
these
said-
things? All these things? Is he just
Well,
lucky?
maybe
I'm not saying he's not a good player.
Maybe he's fortunate
I
to
never
be around
said
great
that.
teams.
But you don't just rock up and you're lucky to come in, are you?
Explain the 262 yellows then, Dan,
Just
please.
part of him, isn't it?
Oh, part of him. And by the way, that part of him is not world class.
But
there you go.
It's a CV that you can't argue against. Well, I don't understand why it would rile you up.
Well, listen, if you don't think what I've just told you makes any difference, then I'm wasting my time.
I think it's
talking
just part of who he is, isn't it, as a player?
to you. That's 262 yellows and 26 red cards. Is somebody who's got red mist and coming through his ears and in his brain. What part of that is world class?
Well, it doesn't matter if you've won everything that he has, surely. What would you prefer,
I'm not
Steve?
gonna-
What would you prefer?
I
His
can't argue with you.
Would you prefer his CV, or would you have preferred to have won him less?
Listen, I've never said anything was wrong with his CV,
Right.
and I've told you he's a good player. I'm just telling you, he's not a world-class player.
It'd be interesting to know how many yellow cards and red cards somebody like Paolo Maldini would have had.
Yeah.
Because I would consider him
World class.
a world-class somebody in the art of defending, amongst others.
Do you know who might know that?
Maybe Gab will be able to tell me roughly.
I don't know. I'm sure it's a lot less than Sergio Ramos, who I think is one of the top 3 in the history of football, maybe even top 2 by this stage. Like, you're setting the bar kind of high with Maldini from that perspective, but could it not be that Sergio Ramos is just an incredibly atypical defender, and he brings so many other attributes to the table that, from Real Madrid's perspective, they more than make up for the fact that he gives away yellow and red cards, and sometimes his positioning isn't what it should be, and he gambles too much and is rash and whatever. But on balance, all the other attributes make him a world-class player.
Hold on. So part of the remit for being a world-class player is being rash and overextending yourself and making poor decisions. I mean, come on, Gab. Come on, Gab.
No, but Stevie,
Seriously.
you must have played. You must have played with guys who maybe were one-footed or who maybe had something. There was maybe something very basic that they just couldn't do particularly well, but then they could do other things so well that the manager always had them in the lineup because the good things that they did far outweighed their weaknesses. Right? It's part of football. Maybe this is what Sergio Ramos is.
Next question. What does Mourinho have to do to make people happy? He was winning games earlier with a defensive mindset, which was not acceptable. Today he played modern football, quote unquote, but he lost. People are still unhappy. Is Mourinho the only problem here, Gab?
Oh, he's not the only problem. But Mourinho didn't change the way he played because people were unhappy with it. Good managers don't do that. Great managers don't do that. And certainly a guy like Jose Mourinho doesn't do it. If he changed against Wolves today, and by the way, I'm not sure how much he changed because, he took the lead and then they got back into it. I'm sure he wanted to win the game. If he changed, it's because he thought it would give Spurs the best possible chance of winning this match. I think it's as simple as that. And the reality is he took over a team that, as he'll remind you many times, was 14th on the table. Now they're, 7th, kind of knocking on the door, depending on whether Sheffield United win their game in hand and depending on what happens elsewhere. And today a game got away from him. That's all it is. And, you can't have it both ways. The fact of the matter is they weren't particularly good and won games earlier. Today they played better and they lost a game. But it's not because Mourinho decided, people are being critical of me, let me change the way I play. No, he's going to do what he always does. He puts out the best team to get the result that he needs. And I'll tell you what, he wouldn't have been happy with a draw against Wolves. He wanted to win this because Wolves are a direct opponent in Spurs' hunt for a Champions League spot.
They got beat, didn't they?
Yes.
No, what he meant, Gab meant he wouldn't have been happy with a draw, so he was going for the win.
Beg your pardon, Gab.
They arguably played a more cohesive team than Wolves.
Yeah.
But they have lost just 3 straight games now. One, of course, was in the Champions League. So, I don't know.
What would make people happy? How about after a game he doesn't talk the biggest lot of nonsense?
It wasn't too bad today. It wasn't too nonsensical.
I had no idea what he was talking about.
What did you do to occupy yourself off the pitch when you were struggling? Did you play golf, read, eat, drink beer? Or I can see Stevie and Craig meditating to clear their minds. Did you ever meditate, Stevie?
Struggling as in poor form?
Yes.
Nothing changed.
No, you didn't do anything to try and...
All those things aforementioned, apart from the meditation. No change.
What did you use to read?
I was reading involved.
There is reading involved.
The newspaper.
I used to read the Viz.
Did you?
Yeah.
Of course you did.
It's fantastic.
Oh my goodness.
Anybody, if you can find
yeah,
a
if you're
copy of Viz,
if you're over 18 and can
recommend
find
that.
it.
Do you remember back in the day, I'll say back in the day, it's not, I think it's just general now, you would go in the dressing room in the morning, training ground, during the week, whatever, and everybody come in, either had a paper or was reading a newspaper.
Right, yeah.
It's just not, unfortunately for the newspaper industry, which everything's just changing now, but nobody's just, something to be said with coming in with a paper.
And a Saturday it was the racing paper.
Now it's the phone. Now it's the phone.
Would Stevie be a VAR operator?
Absolutely.
Yeah, they pay you to go in there?
Absolutely. Yes.
Why'd your voice go a bit high? Yes. Who is the captain of ESPN FC? I don't think there is a captain, is there? I think we're all just a team working together to provide the best product on a daily basis.
Well, that's spoken like a captain.
Predictions for tomorrow's FA Cup match between Pompey and Arsenal. Starting with you, Gab.
I would imagine Arsenal have this because there's several divisions above Portsmouth.
Ian Darkwood, he's a big Pompey fan, isn't he, Ian?
So, yeah, Ian's a massive
He's
Pompey
a
fan.
massive Pompey fan, so but Arsenal.
Yeah. Arsenal as well. Unfortunately, we finish on a negative note. Atlanta